So I want to show you the measuring cups, not assuming anything here, and the measuring spoons. It's really important you understand them. So these are my measuring cups. I have the 1 cup. When you see a recipe that says 1 cup, this is 1 cup. Then this is the half cup, this is the 1/3, and this is the 1/4 cup. So when you're measuring, you don't heap your cup and you don't make it less. It has to be, leveled. You level with your hands, level your flour, level whatever with your hands. So that's how to use your cups. Then your measuring spoons, you have the biggest spoon is the tablespoon, 1 tablespoon. Then you have half tablespoon. You have 1 teaspoon. You have half teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon, 1/8 teaspoon. So depending on what you're measuring, the 1 teaspoon is 15 ml. The half teaspoon is 7.5. The 1 teaspoon is 5 ml. So if you're measuring something that is giving you like maybe 20 ml of something, to add 15 plus 5. That's the 1 tablespoon plus the 1 teaspoon to get your 15, and so on and so forth. The measuring cups also have their own calibration. So anything you're measuring, just check. It's normally written on the cup. Check how many ml your measuring cup is. It always differs, like this measuring cup now, my 1 cup is 237 ml. Some is up to 250. It always differs, but anytime you're measuring, add up the mils and make sure you get exactly what the recipe says. As for the scales, I use my scale for my vanilla cake, my coconut. There are some recipes I use the scale for, and there are some recipes I use the cup for. For the scale measurement, I have a digital scale here. The digital scale is your best friend. Invest in this, is very important. It's much better than the analog scale. You can measure up to 5 kg with this digital scale. You can use any bowl. It comes with its own bowl, but you can actually use any bowl with your digital scale. Anything you want to measure, you have to make sure you're measuring that item, not the bowl or the container that it's inside. So for example, I'm going to use this bowl here. My digital scale is on. Okay, let me switch it on. It's on right now. If I put this bowl on the scale, it's going to first measure the weight of the bowl. We don't need the weight of the bowl. We only need the weight of whether the flour, the sugar, whatever you're measuring. So it's very important that you turn your scale back to 0. Now it's telling me this bowl is about 10 grams. So by pressing this ZT here, it takes it back to 0. So at this point, anything I put inside this bowl is what is being measured, not the bowl itself. So it's very important you note that. So that's just basically how to use your digital scale. Then if you don't have a digital scale, which I strongly advise that you try and buy, this is an analog scale. For analog scale, it's really important you understand the calibration. And how do you actually measure calibration? How do you determine your calibration? For this scale, it's calibrated 0, 200, 400, 600, 800, 1000, and so on. That means the difference between each line is 200 grams. Now, between the 0 and 200 grams, I have 5 small lines, including the 200 gram line itself. So what you do is you divide 200 by 5 to know what that tiny little calibration is. So 200 divided by 5 is 40. So that means each tiny line is 40 grams. So for example, if you have a recipe that says you need 250 grams of an item, you have to make sure that, okay, fine, this is 200. You know the line after 200 is 240. The line after 240 is 280. Now, you can use the line at 240. That's why the analog scale is not perfect. The digital scale is always better. But if you use the line or just make it tiny, slightly after the 240 line as your 250, that's what I normally do. So also, you have to make sure that whatever bowl you're using on your analog scale, you also turn the pointer to 0. For example, I just put this small sieve here. It definitely has its own weight. Then I now use, there is something you can use to adjust it down here to take you back to 0. So I'll just simply move it. And it's very important when you're using this analog scale or any analog scale at all, that you are facing the scale directly. That's 90 degrees, and you bring your head to the level of the scale. If my scale is like this, and I'm standing like this, my measurement is going to be wrong. You have to stand right in front of your scale. As I'm like this, I could still get the measurement wrong until I come down to the level of the scale and I'm looking at it like head on. Then at that point, I can put my bowl on it and take it to 0 from the knob here. So once it's at 0, you know that anything you're measuring inside here, you're measuring only that item. You're not measuring the container that is in. I hope that is clear. We can still explain this better in our Facebook group. Okay? So that's just the little I want to explain to you right now. As we go through this course, any other small things involving the equipment, I will still explain. So let's have a good time with this.